Long before the pyramids of Egypt rose from the desert sands, and before the first cities of Sumer etched their stories onto clay tablets, another great experiment in human settlement was unfolding. Across the fertile plains of what is now modern Ukraine, Romania, and Moldova, people built towns of a scale previously unknown to history. These were not small villages or scattered farmsteads, they were vast, sprawling communities, some home to thousands of inhabitants. For centuries they flourished, creating a unique and complex society. Then, as mysteriously as they appeared, they vanished, leaving behind only the faint outlines of their enormous settlements, like ghosts imprinted on the landscape. These were the people of the Cucuteni Tripilia culture, architects of Europe's first towns. Their world was one of rich black earth, rolling hills, and winding rivers. The story of the Cucuteni Tripilia culture begins around 5500 BC. This was the Neolithic period, or New Stone Age, a time of profound change across the world. Humans were transitioning from a nomadic life of hunting and gathering to a settled existence based on farming. In the lands between the Carpathian Mountains and the Dnieper River, this transition gave rise to a unique and enduring society. Over the course of more than 2 millennia, this culture evolved, expanded, and developed a way of life that was both stable and dynamic. Its timeline stretches from the deep past right up to the dawn of the Bronze Age, ending around 2750 BC. Some of the later megasites, dating to around 4000 BC, were enormous. Sites like Talyanki in modern Ukraine may have housed between 15,000 and 20,000 people, rivaling or even exceeding the size of early cities like Uruk and Sumer. The key difference, however, is that these Eastern European towns appeared earlier. This simple fact upends the traditional narrative that true urbanism began exclusively in the river valleys of the Near East. The houses of the Cucuteni Tripilia people were marvels of Neolithic engineering. They were not simple huts, but substantial, well-constructed dwellings designed to last. The basic framework was made of wood. Builders would drive thick timber posts into the ground to create a sturdy skeleton for the walls and roof. Between these posts they would weave a dense lattice of flexible branches and reeds, a technique known as wattle. This woven frame was then covered, inside and out, with a thick layer of clay mixed with straw or chaff. This mixture, called daub, would dry to a hard, durable surface, providing excellent insulation against the cold winters and hot summers of the region. These houses were often surprisingly large. Many were two-story structures with a ground floor used for daily activities like cooking and craft production, and an upper floor likely used for sleeping and storage. The floors were made of packed earth, sometimes mixed with clay, and fired to create a hard ceramic-like surface. Roofs were probably made of thatch, using bundles of reeds or straw tied to the wooden frame. Inside, the space was often divided by internal walls, creating separate rooms. What is most striking is not just the construction of individual houses, but their arrangement. Instead, the houses were laid out in precise patterns, most often in concentric circles or ellipses. The circular design of the megasites was more than just an architectural preference, it was a social blueprint. This layout fostered a strong sense of community and interdependence. Houses arranged in rings facing a common center or a shared street encouraged daily interaction among neighbors. That constant contact was the bedrock of their social fabric, reinforcing kinship and cooperation. The town's very shape guided people toward a collective existence. The open spaces between rings were not empty, they were arteries of community life. They served as streets for movement, as workshops, as playgrounds, and as gathering places. Public and private blurred, life was lived in the open, within sight and sound of neighbors. Planning these settlements implies high social coordination. Building for thousands isn't simple. It required agreement on the layout, allocation of house plots, and mobilizing large labor, felling trees, digging clay, constructing dozens or hundreds of buildings. That they did this without a powerful king is extraordinary. Decisions appear collective, councils of elders or community assemblies. This contrasts with hierarchical cities elsewhere. The Cucuteni Tripilia rings suggest a different ideal: unity and relative equality, a social experiment in large-scale living that, for a time, avoided deep social stratification. Section 5. Daily Rhythms of a Lost People. Life in a Cucuteni Tripilia town was intimately tied to the land. These people were skilled farmers who had mastered key crops. They planted fields of wheat, they planted fields of barley, they planted fields of millet. These were their staple grains. They grew peas, they grew lentils. Archaeology shows carbonized seeds and impressions of grains in pottery. To process these grains, they used grinding stones, called querns, to mill flour for bread and porridge. Farming required a deep understanding of the seasons. It needed collective work for planting and harvesting. and reliable storage for surplus to survive winter. Alongside farming, animal husbandry was a cornerstone. They kept herds of cattle, for meat, milk, bone for tools, leather from hides, animal power to pull plows and carts. They also raised pigs, sheep, and goats. Fishing in nearby rivers supplemented their diet. They hunted red deer, they hunted wild boar. These activities added variety to their meals. One of the most intriguing aspects is the overwhelming prevalence of female imagery. Across thousands of sites, archaeologists have unearthed tens of thousands of small clay figurines. The vast majority of them are female. These figures are not simple, generic representations. They are often highly stylized with exaggerated hips and buttocks, carefully detailed clothing, hairstyles, and painted or incised decorations. Some are shown seated, as if on a throne. Others are standing. Others appear in motion. Found in homes. Found in shrines. Found even in refuse pits. This suggests they played a central role in the belief system of these people. This abundance has led some scholars to propose a matriarchal society or, more cautiously, a matrifocal one, centered on women, where lineage may be traced through the mother's line and where women hold significant social and religious authority. The figurines are interpreted as a supreme deity, a great goddess, as symbols of life, of fertility, of regeneration. Pottery shows recurring symbols, spirals, zigzags, patterns representing water, patterns representing seeds. The evidence goes beyond figurines. Burial practices also offer clues. In Cucuteni Tripilia, dramatic differences in burial wealth are rare. Male and female graves are not always clearly distinct. There is little evidence for a warrior elite. However, we must interpret this evidence with care. Prehistoric symbols are open to debate. The figurines may be ancestors or priestesses or simple representations of women in daily life. Without written records, certainty is impossible. Nonetheless, the sheer quantity and consistency of female imagery is undeniable. It points to a worldview where the feminine principle was deeply respected and held sacred. Whether that translated into direct social power for women remains an open question, but their world was clearly imagined and represented in a profoundly female-centered way. Perhaps the greatest mystery surrounding the Cucuteni Tripilia culture is the practice of periodically and deliberately burning their own settlements. Archaeologists excavating these sites find distinct layers of destruction. A layer of new houses is built directly on top of a thick layer of ash and rubble from the previous settlement. This was not a one-time event. Many sites show evidence of multiple cycles of construction, occupation, burning, sometimes repeating every 60 to 80 years. This practice, known as settlement burning, was so widespread and systematic that it cannot be explained as random accidents or acts of war. The evidence for deliberate burning is compelling. In many cases, the fires were incredibly hot, far hotter than a typical house fire. This suggests extra fuel may have been added to ensure a complete conflagration. The clay daub from the walls was fired to a ceramic hardness, which is why it survives so well in the archaeological record. Furthermore, artifacts are often found in situ within the burned houses, including whole pots, tools, figurines, sometimes arranged in careful patterns. This suggests that the burning was not a panicked flight from an enemy attack, but a controlled event where objects were intentionally left behind. Why would a community invest so much labor in building a town, only to burn it to the ground a few generations later? There is no single universally accepted answer, and scholars have proposed several theories. One idea is that the burning was a form of ritual cleansing. It may have marked the end of a generational cycle, a way to purify the space and make way for a new beginning. Not destruction, but transformation and renewal, much like burning fields to restore fertility. For over 1,000 years, the Cucuteni Tripilia megasites thrived, representing a successful, stable model of large-scale community living. But this world was not destined to last forever. Around 3,500 BC, subtle but significant changes began to appear in the archaeological record. The remarkable social and economic equality that had characterized the culture for so long started to erode. We begin to see clear signs of growing social differentiation, most visible in burial customs. The classic megasite was composed of relatively uniform houses. Later sites show greater variation in house size and quality. Some dwellings were larger, more elaborately constructed than their neighbors, suggesting the emergence of a more prominent elite. At the same time, the use of copper became more widespread, initially for ornaments, then gradually for tools and weapons, axes, daggers. As internal social structures changed, the external world was also in flux. New groups moved across the Pontic-Caspian steppe, pastoralist cultures often associated with the Yamnaya horizon. They brought different technologies, social systems, and likely new languages, the precursors to the Indo-European family. While the end was probably not a single violent invasion, increased contact and competition placed immense pressure on their traditional way of life. By around 2750 BC, the era of the megasites was over. The massive circular towns were abandoned, and the practice of building them ceased. People began to live in smaller, more dispersed, often fortified settlements. The distinctive painted pottery styles faded, replaced by new ceramic traditions. The story of the Cucuteni Tripilia culture is a profound reminder of the diversity of the human past. It reveals a path to urbanism that was radically different from the one taken in the Near East. For centuries, they built and sustained some of the largest population centers on Earth, not through coercion, not through kingship, but through cooperation and shared ritual. Their society was an incredible achievement in social engineering, a long-lasting experiment in how to live together in large numbers while maintaining a relatively egalitarian ethos. Their legacy is not written in stone monuments or royal inscriptions, but in the very layout of their towns and the shared artistry of their crafts. The great mysteries of this culture continue to fascinate us. The ritual burning of entire settlements remains a captivating puzzle, a practice that speaks to a worldview we can only partially grasp. Modern science gives us powerful new eyes to see it. LiDAR and satellite imagery reveal ghostly outlines. Isotope analysis of human and animal bones tells us what they ate and where they came from. DNA studies begin to unravel their genetic history. Through this patient work of discovery, we are slowly resurrecting the world of the Cucuteni Tripilia people, not as a collection of artifacts, but as a living, breathing society that faced challenges and made choices. Their story is not just about the past, it resonates with the present. As we continue to explore the faint rings that lie just beneath the surface of the modern world, we are not just uncovering a forgotten civilization. We are recovering a vital chapter in the long, complex, and endlessly surprising story of humanity. In these quiet fields where clay pots and the ashes of ancient homes sleep, we find a new lost world every week.